Right. We're looking at the commandments given to Moses, and today it is honour your father and mother. It's also Mothering Sunday. What does honour mean? Honour. We think of honour as due to someone who has done something very special, got a medal, a knighthood. It covers respect and look after and obey. I looked up the definition. Esteem due to be paid to a worthy person. Respect, highest estimation, veneration, confers distinction or does credit, a fine and scrupulous sense of what is right. So there, calls for a lot. It would be good if every parent deserved that respect due, but as we know, sadly, it doesn't. But we won't dwell on that. This is a general principle. The seriousness of respect in those days is emphasised a bit further on in Exodus 21, verse 15. Whoever attacks his father or mother is to be put to death. So they took the business very seriously. The command doesn't actually say obey. I think it was just assumed. It was essential for their life. Paul in Ephesians did write in chapter 6, "Children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right." And parents were expected to be responsible. There are a number of proverbs on the subject. Look them up afterwards. There are lots of peoples and rules we're expected to obey these days. Some easy, some hard. In terms of people, just think, parents, teachers, policemen, referees, I could go on. And lots of things we should obey. Roadsides, warnings, medicines, all sorts of things. The law, instruction manuals. Life is very complicated these days. But if we didn't obey in general, there would be chaos. And if we don't obey rules, there are consequences. We're going to look at 3 questions. First, who obeys their parents? I'm going to do a reading now from Luke chapter 2, beginning at verse 41. Every year, this is about Jesus, his parents went to Jerusalem for the feast of Passover. When he was 12 years old, they went up to the feast according to the custom. After the feast was over, while his parents were returning home, the boy Jesus stayed behind in Jerusalem, but they were unaware of it, thinking he was in their company. They travelled on for a day. Then they began looking for him among their relatives and friends. When they did not find him, they went back to Jerusalem to look for him. After 3 days, they found him in the temple courts, sitting among the teachers, listening to them and asking them questions. Everyone who heard him was amazed at his understanding and his answers. When his parents saw him, they were astonished. His mother said to him, "Son, why have you treated us like this? Your father and I have been anxiously searching for you." "Why were you searching for me?" he asked. "Didn't you know I had to be in my father's house?" But they did not understand what he was saying to them. Then he went down to Nazareth with them and was obedient to them. But his mother treasured all these things in her heart. And Jesus grew in wisdom and stature and in favour with God and men. In Jesus' time, life was different. I nearly said simpler, but they had everything to do to live. The community had to work together to be self-sufficient. And parents and neighbours did the teaching on nearly everything. There were religious leaders and the Romans. So children were taught their jobs by their parents. Jesus probably became a carpenter, and it's thought that his father died and he became responsible for the family. In the Old Testament times, there wouldn't be a village school, but by the time of Jesus, there would possibly be a school, possibly the synagogue, the church of their time, where the boys would be taught the scriptures by a respected man of the village, probably the rabbi, the equivalent to the vicar. The community would have to work together and be self-sufficient. Also, parents were dependent on their children for looking after them when they grew old. In 1 Timothy, it says, chapter 5, if a widow has children or grandchildren, these should first of all put their religion into practice by caring for their own family, and so repaying their parents and grandparents, for this is pleasing to God. People usually stayed where they were born. Very different today. These days, it's the children that tell their fathers how to work their mobile phones, or at least in my case, and they move all over the world. The consequences of obedience. The commandment also states that your days may be long in the land I am giving you. It makes sense. If you all work together, you'll be safer, happier, prosper, which is making a point about community, the wider family, not just parents. Let's look at one example. A large group from Nazareth went to Jerusalem, as they did every year, to celebrate. When they left afterwards, Joseph and Mary assumed Jesus, who was 12, was with the others. He wasn't. At the end of the day, they found out and dashed back, and it took 3 days to find him in the temple. Mary didn't say, "How could I have done this to you, leaving you behind?" Instead, she says, "How could you have done this to us?" Jesus replied, "Didn't you know I had to be in my Father's house?" Almost a slight rebuke, like, "You should have known where I'd be." It says he was obedient. This tells us something about the closeness of the communities in those days. They could just assume. Also, that Jesus was aware of who his Father was and quietly asserting an independence of mind and vocation. So, second question. Whose family are you part of? Jesus was teaching and his mother and brothers came. Mark tells us that they were concerned about what he was doing. Was he mad? But they couldn't get in, so they sent a message. Jesus' reply was, this is Matthew 12, "Who is my mother and who are my brothers? Here are my brothers and mother, for whoever does the will of my Father in heaven is my brother and sister and mother." The family of his church is his family, to work together as his community. God is our Father. The teaching is his word, which we need to study. Is there someone in St Andrews you don't know? Part of the family. Is there a job you could do to help? Part of the family. It's Mothering Sunday, a time when servants were allowed to go and visit their home church. It's interesting that church was put before own family then, but they would no doubt see the parents as well. Family has a high place. Third question, who hates his family? Surely not. A surprising statement, but Jesus said, this is Luke chapter 14 verse 26, "If anyone comes to me and does not hate his father and mother, his wife and children, brothers and sisters, yes, even his own life, he cannot be my disciple. And anyone who does not pick up his cross and follow me cannot be my disciple." He was putting our priorities very clear. He didn't literally mean hate, but it's as if following him comes first, with consequences. Our cross is a cross of love. He's also making a point about the importance of parents and family. I've tried to word it differently, as if Jesus was saying. So imagine Jesus saying this: it's almost unimaginable for anyone to come before your parents. It would seem as if you hated them. But there is someone. It is I. I must come first in your life, and I want you to bear the burden of showing my love to the world. Love the world as I do. Love means action rather than emotion, as in his parable to the Good Samaritan. Jesus, of course, did care for his family. Even in agony on the cross, he asked John to look after his mother. So, he said, you must follow me first, show my love to the world by your deeds, and bear the consequences. It'll cost you. His words first struck me when I was 12. Very shy and inclined towards sums rather than expressing myself. I could not imagine me being a missionary or a vicar. Fortunately, he does not call everybody to do these two jobs. He had a plan. So there you are, you younger ones. He has a plan for you. Meanwhile, respect your parents. Be a part of his family here at St Andrews. Share with us what you're doing in Sunday Club. We love to see. Come to Holiday Club. Bring your friends to it and to our other activities, Friday and Messy Church. To summarise, trust and obey. Respect others. Be part of family of the church and show love by deeds to all. And how do you and I respond to the three questions?